Hi, everyone. Welcome to Food Talk Live. I'm really excited today because I get to chat with Dennis Bagneris from Liberty's Kitchen, which is located in my favorite city in the world, New Orleans. I consider it my hometown, even though I wasn't born there. I lived there about 5 years. Dennis is the CEO of Liberty's Kitchen, and it's an organization that provides a paid 3-month job training program in culinary arts and food service for 16 to 24-year-olds in New Orleans. So it's a way to help folks get into the business of the culinary arts and learn a lot of the different skills that they need to be successful. So Dennis, thank you so much for joining us. I'm so glad you could be here.
Happy to be here, Danny. Thank you for having me.
So what I like to do with this podcast slash live cast is ask everyone the same first question as a way to get to know them. And it is, what is your favorite food memory? So you live in New Orleans. You have a lot of food memories, but is there a
Wow.
particular one you want to share?
Oh, wow. Does it have to be from New Orleans?
Nope. It can be from
Okay.
wherever you want.
I have one. um, uh, Before all the craziness with COVID, I had the opportunity for the first time in a long time to take my kids to Disney World. And
Oh, nice.
yeah, my wife and I saved up for about 2 years to make that trip happen. And we really wanted to make it magical for our kids because it was their first trip there. I had at the time an 8-year-old and a 12-year-old, and
Nice.
yeah, it was amazing. We for the first time got to do something that my wife and I talked about, which was dining at Cinderella's castle, like literally eating in the castle on the property, and it was amazing. We wanted to set it up. We wanted to do it right around sunset, open menu. We wanted to get a specific table by the window so they could eat in this castle, see the characters, but also see, Disney World at sunset. And it was really just, not to be a cliche, but it was really a magical experience. I think the kids they still talk about it, how they met princesses and characters from movies that they like,
Oh
and
my
how they ate in
gosh.
the castle, and the food was just amazing. The service was amazing, and it was the first thing they did when they got to the park, so it kind of set the tone for the entire trip. And it was last year, and they talk about it still like it happened a couple weeks ago. So it was just one of those things
Oh,
where, as a parent, it was just great to be able to have this opportunity to be within my means, to save up enough money to give my kids this really what I'm hoping was going to be this lifelong magical experience for them and for me and my wife. And it was a happy opportunity for us to be able to provide that for them, especially for their first trip there.
I'm so glad, and I'm so glad it happened last year that you'd planned it all out, and that
Right.
it didn't get disrupted by all the craziness that we've seen now. That's really wonderful. That is magical. That's really awesome. So I'm hoping you can tell us about Liberty's Kitchen and what it is and why it exists. What's the importance of it?
Yeah, absolutely. So Liberty's Kitchen exists for the points that you were making. We serve a population that is just marginalized and criminalized and just doesn't have opportunities to really have a fair shot at first or even second or first chances at life. Um, so we talk about this range of young people called the opportunity youth population. And on the surface, they look like lazy young people who just either don't want to keep a job or don't want
Right.
to be in school. And when you really get involved in the lives of these young people and you really get involved in this work, what you come to recognize is there are systemic issues at play, particularly for this population that we serve, who are in poverty, have had run-ins with juvenile justice, or suffering from some level of issue with education or social placements. It becomes more of an issue of not what these young people are not doing, but more what they're not receiving to get what they need to be successful.
Right.
That's what Liberty's Kitchen was born out of, right? This idea of systemic racism and this challenge of bias that recognizes that, people of color in the city of New Orleans, people in poverty, they don't get a fair shot. They don't get what they need to be successful.
Right.
So the opportunity here was, what do we know? New Orleans is traditionally, historically, culturally based so much around food. So much happens around food. Is my point. How we relate memories,
Yeah.
and community, and support around the importance of food, and how we can also look at that dynamic and say, in a place like New Orleans, you know, 1 in every 4 households, is food insecure. Is crazy reality. So we know restaurants are here. We know food is here. How do we connect people to it with opportunities that give them a way to take food and put it in a place of justice that provides opportunity for growth, support, job creation, but also character building and development
Right.
for young people, and socializations that they're not getting. So that's kind of where Liberty's Kitchen was born out of, this need to say, here's a group of young people that are criminalized, marginalized, they're not given a fair shake. And then we have an industry here that is the lifeblood of what New Orleans kind of needs to survive, which is tourism, hospitality, restaurants that are saying they can't keep employees or they need employees and they want local lifeblood to fill those spaces.
Right.
So that's how Liberty kind of bridges the gap. We are case management, we are life skills, training and development, we are socialization skills, character leadership development skills for this population. But at the same time, we're advocates for them against systems that are despairing any chances they have at strong opportunities for self-starter, being self-starters or self-sufficient in their own life.
Yeah, no, it's so interesting, this idea of character building and socializing folks to be able to interact in different ways. My a friend of Food Tank, Tony Hillary, who works with young people in Harlem, he often says that he's growing young people.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that you've said that, this is not a cooking school, Liberty's
Right.
Kitchen. This is a place that really changes lives.
Right.
And I guess what I want to ask is, what's the impact? You're, as you said before, you're doing all this character building. People are getting jobs. They're learning all these new skills. But what does that actually, if you can share a story, what does that actually translate to for a young person?
I mean, for a young person, it's the difference between day and night. I mean, so many of the young people that graduate from our program, they find this opportunity to believe in themselves, right? I want to just kind of unpack this opportunity or idea of advocacy or empowerment, right? Because so many nonprofits or schools or programs, they really pat themselves on the back for saying, hey, I fixed that broken youth, or I fixed that broken child, or whatnot. And that's really a very old and kind of outdated way of looking at this work. I think where Liberty Kitchen really resonates in making an impact is we recognize that our children are not broken. The systems around them are broken.
Right.
True empowerment is not really an opportunity for us to raise up these young people. What it is we need to use our privilege, our space, our networks to break down the barriers, because these young people already have what they need to be successful. They have the skill sets. They have the power in them, so they empower themselves. And I just want to unpack the context of nonprofits or organizations or advocates not really being the ones who really should be priding themselves on saving youth. What we need to be doing is knocking down or breaking down the mechanism or machine that has created the obstacles that don't really allow young people to empower themselves. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And it's that investment. You're investing in young people who already, they have the power. Like you said, they are empowered, but you're investing in them. And I think that's where the crucial sort of difference is.
Yeah. I think to your earlier question, an example of a young woman that I like to always raise up is a young lady who graduated, Joya Barconi. She's a graduate of the program now, almost 4 years. And she had 2 kids when she came in. Now she's got 3. She was working at a fast food restaurant when she came to us, and it wasn't enough money to make ends meet. The schedule was too sporadic for her to be, a single mother taking care of her kids. She just didn't really know what to do. She wanted options. She wanted opportunities. And she came here and we helped her, and she graduated the program, and she did a few jobs here and there. But what she really wanted to do was start her own business. And fast forward to now, she has served as the president of the Youth Leadership Council, which is composed of young people who have graduated this program and alumni who inform decision-making within our own organization. She is an employee of the organization. She actually works here and mentors and trains other young people who come through the program. And we have gifted her space in our organization for her to have her own kiosk and cubicle so that she can run her own business from our desk. So she doesn't have to pay for rent, a utility, or a computer. We've gifted her those things since we're already open. We want to
Right.
make sure that we're again, to your point, investing in her, because for her to go out and buy and rent those things, her business was
Yeah.
shut down before it even started
Right.
because she's not able to bring that collateral to the table. So I say that to say, again, the the young people bring what they need to have to the table. They need coaching, networks, guidance, and pathways to get there.
Yeah.
Organizations such as myself don't save Joyous. We present opportunities to Joyous so that she can shine and she can bring other people. She can be an example for other young people
Yeah.
using our kitchen space, being in contact and communication with our board members. Um, as you mentioned, we're not a cooking school. We use cooking environment to train soft skills opportunities so young people can take those things and adapt them to other fields of service. They may all start out in some level in food service, which
Yeah.
a lot of people do. First job out of the gate is in food service.
I did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so did I. I relate to people all the time that even as a CEO, uh, when I'm speaking in front of groups of people, or if I have to get together a meeting of some sort, I fall back on a lot of my customer service training when I was wearing a paper hat and a bow tie at Cafe Du Monde when I was 15 years old.
Yeah.
The skills that you take from food service can be adapted across the board. What you need is somebody who's just able to translate how the basics of making a salad and preparing a salad equates to time management, effective communication,
Yeah.
being a self-starter, and being able to respond and communicate with supervisors as well as teammates. All those
Hmm.
things are coming out of kitchen environments, but we have to have the right people in place to be able to kind of connect those dots for young people. So again, they know their worth. I think that's a
Right.
true component too in this training too. Is
Right.
I think young people hustle to survive a lot of times, but because of the situations that they're in, don't understand the value or the worth that those skill sets can translate to outside of their immediate needs. For example, when I
Yeah.
first started this organization, started with the organization in 2011, a lot of the conversations I had with young people at that time were young people who were coming strictly out of the system. Like they already had records, and they were trying to start over, trying to start a new life. And when you sit down and talk to these young people, you understand that no young person actively decides, "Hey, I'm going to sell drugs to make a living," or "I'm going
Right.
to I'm going to steal a car to sell it to because that's what I've always wanted to do with my life." Nobody's showing, or the wrong people are becoming mentors to these young people who are taking advantage of their value. And that
Right.
translates to young people not knowing any better or doing what they think is right. It's that old adage, how do you tell a starving man it's not right to steal? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You have to eat, you have to survive. So I know there's a lot of argument around what about basic human decency and in conscious, having a conscience. I get all of that, but so much of that is on a different value scale when it becomes an abject conversation around need versus want. And
Right.
for a lot of young people, for anybody, there's a basic need to eat, sleep, and survive.
Right.
And the more we, again, become gatekeepers on who gets those opportunities and
Yeah.
who has those pathways, then we're doing ourselves a disservice around how we are disassociating or disconnecting from populations who are in most need to have these resources. Because again, I keep coming back to these young people already bring it to the table.
Right.
They just need a way to be able to bring it to the table that projects them on a pathway to success and self-sufficiency.
Yeah. Absolutely. That opportunity, that investment that you've spoken about, and I think that there's a really important link here between the skills that these folks are learning, that these young folks are learning in culinary, and hospitality, and food service, that translates into not just economic justice where they're making a healthy living, something that they can live on so that they don't have to turn to anything else, but it also gives a chance for creating more equality in the food system, because you see people who don't look like me, you see other folks
Mm-hmm.
in the food service environment, and I think that diversity is needed, and that will help translate into a lot of more equality that we've desperately needed and have ignored for so long.
Absolutely. I couldn't disagree more, especially quite honestly, in the context of what we're seeing right now every day in the media, between the racial unrest or what's happening as far as how COVID has affected the economy. And, you're talking about your teachers and your lower level wage employers being put out on the
Right.
front line and just kind of being regarded as essential, but at the same time, disposable.
Right.
And
Right.
for organizations like us, this is the time for us to really advocate in those spaces to use what we know already about the populations that we serve. I think that's another place where a lot of nonprofits kind of miss the mark. It's really good again to be able to provide services to young people, but if that's all we really did at the end of the day, we would no less be as big a part of the mechanism as the systemic issues that our young people are faced with and challenged every day. If we are not learning every day from young people that we serve why the situations exist as they do within the communities that they come from and how we have space or a footprint to be able to make some changes or at least have those conversations. Like
Mm-hmm.
every
Mm-hmm.
restaurant partner that we work with, we do not speak about our young people from a negative deficit perspective. Like
Right.
so many restaurants want to believe, hey, I'll give Liberty's Kitchen youth a chance because those young people are broken and they need help. And the truth of the matter is that's not the case at all. A young
Right.
person who was looking for an opportunity came here, got trained up specifically in your industry, and is
Right.
probably better prepared to work in your environment than any common person coming in off the street filling out a resume that you have no idea who they are or what their background is. At least
Right.
our young people, we have done some training in life skills. We have done some development on, social emotional learning. We have trained them to skill sets that are particularly useful in your environment. And you know that we are a branded organization that takes all of this training very seriously. What we're
Yeah.
asking from you is that you carry the baton for that young person into your environment. Don't create a Hell's Kitchen environment. Create
Right.
a community of care in your space. Pay them an effective and efficient wage. Be honest with them about their skill, their shifts, and how frequently they're going to get paid. Because these people have more variables in the outside life from transportation and childcare and housing
Right.
than you can even imagine. So if we could even do just that small part of facilitating some structure or standard in food service around regular schedules, uh, equitable pay,
Mm-hmm.
equitable opportunities, diverse staffing, um, you would see less turnover and less cost than incurred by restaurant owners. So we have to start having those conversations too. Like, are we going to keep continuing? And I'm hoping that what's happening with COVID is informing some of these discussions that say the hiring and pay hierarchy as it has existed. I can only speak to some detail about hotel and hospitality and restaurant
Sure.
has been needed to be addressed for decades, centuries, whatever.
Absolutely. For centuries.
Right. It's broken.
Absolutely.
It's a broken system. And I think COVID has really exposed a lot of that, much as it has with the conversations around systemic racism and social injustice, to really start opening eyes around what is the tipping system still fair? What does
Right.
real wage work look like? Um, what do hours look like? What does sick leave look like? How can we assist in transportation, given that we know transportation is a huge barrier? Public
Right.
transportation is a huge barrier for a lot of our wage workers across the board. So how are we using our information to start having those conversations to support a better, more active and supportive community around um, food and food systems and food justice? I know we're trying to do our part, and we've been very lucky and fortunate in New Orleans to work with some incredible partners. And Liberty's Kitchen is an organization that holds up diversity, holds up this thinking that we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for our customers and our frontline workers and our and our,
Sure.
and our wage workers. Uh, we understand the investment in our team, and I don't think it's a big leap to look at the status quo of how restaurants and food service has been managed in the past, to identify that it's not working and to begin to work on a system that really holds up trust and gives real opportunity and engagement and investment into their workers so that it doesn't become such a revolving door space and people can really
Sure.
begin to make a career out of these
Right.
opportunities in sport as opposed to just jobs.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think that's one of the few bright spots to come out of COVID-19 is that we see the need for really transforming the future of restaurants and the future of food service and what it actually looks like. And the, your points about schedules and transportation, this is a lot of things that most folks don't think about who don't work in
No.
food service. They don't understand, that if you have a late shift, there's often, there's not a bus or a
Right.
trolley to get on, and you have to take an Uber or get in a taxi, and that's a lot of your wages right at the door,
Right.
just to get back to your neighborhood. So all of these things, and I really love what you said about a community of care. If we can make
Mhm.
the restaurant environment a place where there's less yelling and less
Yeah.
less harassment, less sexual harassment, less just sort of drudgery work, that folks will want to make a career, that youth will want to be engaged in it.
I mean, I speak about that often when I travel, when I sit on other panels, and it's not like something that's just directly something that I think about. It's born out of conversation from other partners and other people who share the same frustrations that I do in trying to support our population and our youth, try to really presenting them with the best opportunities available. I was very fortunate. We as an organization are very fortunate to be, funded and in thought partnership with the Aspen Institute.
Oh,
Uh,
great. Yeah, we
and,
love
and
them.
as you may know, a big focus of their work is providing a fair, equitable, and diverse space for youth development, youth entrepreneurship, and youth career building. And there was a panel, and I'll never forget what the young lady said as she spoke. But she said, if you really listen to young people, you know, and hear about why they haven't kept jobs or why they have difficulty with employment, young people never leave jobs; they quit people, right?
Sure.
And as I think about that, I was like, that's not a statement that's like so untrue to even adults or anybody else. And I think about my own job history. If I've ever quit a job, it's usually been because I didn't like the person who was managing me,
Sure.
right? So also some work that we're doing with the Annie Casey Foundation. There's just this feeling and it's this idea of what it looks like to create this sense of belonging in a space.
Right.
So many people, not just in restaurants and hotels, but so many people on the career level or workforce level will be much more inclined or invested to stay within organizations or opportunities or careers if they felt that upfront initial feeling of value or
Right.
belonging within an environment. I think it's on the CEOs and the EDs and the bosses of the world. They want to create these spaces where their employees feel valued. They're performing, at very
Mm-hmm.
high percentages. It starts with how you treat your staff. It starts with them having some opportunity to be involved in decision making processes.
Sure.
It has what are you offering as far as professional development? What does pathways within the organization look like? And it sounds on the surface like more work for the boss, but like anything else with change, it's not necessarily more work. It might seem that way up front, but it's more along the lines of evaluating how you want to your efforts to show up, right? It's like maybe if you spend 10% on this as opposed to 50% on something and
Right.
30% over here and 40 on this, then it becomes this thing of wouldn't you rather spend your time investing in your current staff, given that you know how difficult it is to rehire, restaff, retrain, reuniform? You're wasting so much money, time, and effort on the revolving door scenario than you would be in the personal investment opportunities that strictly come from if you would treat your staff as human beings and less like
Right.
roles and titles and boxes on an org chart.
Right, right. Yeah. Again, it comes down to that investment. What do you want to invest in people so that you can, have a better organization, a better business. I think those things are really important. I do want to switch gears a little bit and see
Yeah,
if you can give us a sort of an overview of what's happening with the restaurant situation in New Orleans right now. I know there's been a lot of back and forth. There were closures, then things opened, and it's my understanding that things closed again this week. Restaurants and bars, or just bars. I'm not sure, but
right.
what does that mean for the work that you do? So that overview, and then maybe just a summary of what it means for Liberty's Kitchen.
Yeah, absolutely. As I mentioned earlier, the restaurant hospitality industry is a lifeblood of this city, which is both a pro and a con for us, right? It
Right.
dramatically impact the landscape of economically for the city of New Orleans. But there are so many restaurants and so much need for food that they're not all gone, obviously.
Of
And,
course.
and a lot of them have
And
fought and
thankfully.
yeah,
Right.
there's so many restaurants, and New Orleans is just a place that's accustomed to eating. So the need for food is not going to go anywhere, despite COVID or not. So thankfully,
Right.
we exist in a space where there is a need for food service in some capacity. It has been dramatically impacted in the amount of opportunities that we have as far as external partners and hiring partners and the like, because of the simple fact that so many restaurants have had to close down. Currently,
Right.
restaurants are still able, like I said, we actually have a restaurant that's partnered with our work that helps us to generate revenue. But bars are all closed currently right now, as we're in phase 2 of what we can do in our city. But restaurants can still do curb service and drive-by service, limited dining. I think we're at, if I'm not mistaken, I think 20 people within the
Okay.
space. We are not doing any dining service at our location, but we do provide curbside service. And how this all translates to how we're continuing to train our young people is, again, to my earlier point, we're not a cooking school. We
Right.
we have our own, thankfully, we have our own kitchen and restaurant embedded into our program. So we're very lucky to say that I still have my chefs on site. I
Yeah.
still have my trainers on site. So we can still put them in the kitchen. We can still show them how to cook and teach them how to cook. That need to be able to cook and provide for yourself and your family is number one.
Yeah.
Part of the reason why we chose that as an opportunity for young people is because we want them to be able to make better choices around food, around what they put in their bodies, around how they can cook for their entire families. The more they know more about the opportunity or the ideas around what cooking can provide. So it starts there. The next thing is that we still have restaurant partners who thankfully enough, understand how important we are within the community,
Right.
want to see us make it through this. And even though they may be reducing their capacity to hire, they still want to be able to train young people in some level of externship
That's great.
that can help young people as well. We did pause the program in March when all of this did happen because there was so much unknown, unfortunately. Um, and unfortunately, it looks like there may be a looming part 2 to a
Sure.
shutdown, given that the cases seem to be going the opposite direction as opposed to flattening any kind of a curve.
Sure.
Uh, but right now, we're counting on the partnerships. We're counting on the relationships and the support to be able to continue what we do. However, at a vastly reduced rate. We were doing upwards of, just to give you an example, we did 10 students per cohort that we would train every 3 weeks, with the idea that we would enroll upwards of anywhere from 120 to 130 and hopefully graduate upwards of 60, 65 by the end of the year, and still be able to provide
Sure.
service with about 80 to 90 to connect them to some service for self-sufficiency. At this rate, we're probably only going to be able to do 2 classes for the remainder of the year. They won't be able to overlap. We'll only be able to do anywhere
Yeah.
from 8 to 10 because of social distancing. So it's impacted us. I won't say that it hasn't, but again, because we've been supported so incredibly through philanthropic partners that recognize the importance of our work, the restaurant partners that do understand why we exist, and just an incredibly supportive board of directors. We've been able to make it through. We've been able to just kind of squeak through so far. We've been able to continue to provide service, and we've also had to pivot too. When we were down and we weren't doing in-house training, we were still getting food to the community. We had programs coming in and utilizing our kitchen space to do food giveaways. We had other
Fantastic.
partners in restaurants donating food that we could get to our young people, and our
Yeah.
program team pivoted to deliveries and food deliveries for young people who couldn't leave or they don't have grocery
Sure.
stores in their areas. So
Sure.
the programming was still there. Young people still needed support. And I think if I had any advice for anybody in the context of what's happening around COVID, is to just kind of reduce yourself back to what is your initial values as an organization.
Right.
It may not fit that standard structure that you have listed. You send out in a grant report. But what are you here to do? Support young people, feed young people, be there for our partner organizations, and provide for community. And you pivot.
You have to pivot. That's the word of the year, I feel like. Before I ask the final question, I want to make sure people can go to your website and they can
Yeah,
donate there, right?
please
Dennis?
do. Yes,
Great.
at
So
www.libertieskitchen.org.
awesome. And we'll have that available on our website as well. Again, it's libertieskitchen.org. What do you need the most right now, Dennis? What, in addition to, funding to keep the organization alive, what would you ask, John Bell Edwards or, the administration in DC? What would you ask? What do you need the most from the governments at both the state, New Orleans government and the federal government?
I mean, that's a laundry list, honestly. I would say what I would probably say is to reevaluate a stimulus package of some type.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for us, from organizations like ours, the biggest difficulty is wanting everybody to go back to work to create some normalization around commercial opportunities or economic investment. But if people don't have money, they don't have jobs. How is money being circulated through the system? If there was a way we could revisit the PPP, because I know that came out at the beginning of the year, which was great,
Right.
but I mean, it's kind of like a plug in the dam that we have to figure out some other level of either added incentive to check to organizations to pay their staff. I'm not really sure how that would work, but there needs to be something other than just asking people to open to stimulate the economy, because I don't understand how people who don't want to be grouped in large gatherings or with minimal opportunities to be able to serve, how you expect that to revitalize revenue and economics and community. I don't quite understand that. So I think there needs to be a revisit of some second tier of stimulus that needs to come through to help people. Um, I think would help the greater perspective of employers around the city. For us as an organization individually, donating, one of the hardest things right now to get funds for, even through grants or emergency funding,
Right.
is simple operation. We want to be here to continue to provide opportunities for community. We want to be able to provide food, but you know, it costs. It costs to keep lights on. It costs to keep things running. And if we don't have, we can only feed so many people in a day, and people are not traveling because of a global pandemic. If you want these things to stay afloat, then they're going to need help elsewhere. So donations are always helpful. Supporting the organizations as frequently as you can, when and however possible you can, is always helpful. Also,
Absolutely. All great recommendations. Again, libertieskitchen.org. Dennis, you've been a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I hope folks will join us on our next episode, when I'll be talking to Venkatesh Manar about micronutrients and how they can help us stay healthy. Thank you so much, Dennis. Please do well.
thank you, Danielle.